All right, you guys know what time it is, right? Here at the MMA Boxing Addicts channel, the home of all of the breaking news in the world of boxing. We've got a fight announcement. On May 9th in the UK, an all-British affair between two fighters with a combined record of 42 wins and 40 of those wins coming by way of knockout. You're talking about an absolute miracle of a career when it comes to Fabio Wardley. You're talking about a guy who started boxing at the age of 20 with only 4 white-collar fights, no amateur experience at all, making it to the top level of boxing. You're talking about a guy who just 4 fights ago had a draw with Fraser Clark, very close fight. 7 months later returns October of 2024 to face him in the rematch and knocks him out in round one. Oh, he knocked him out in round 1. Absolutely huge win. Then he ends up fighting Justin Honey, a fighter who was leading every single round, beating Fabio Wardley every single round, leading up to that 10th round, where Fabio Wardley knocks him out with a huge right hand. Boom! The whole goddamn stadium gets up and is going berserk because how big of a comeback win this was. He wins that fight by 10th round KO. And after that fight, finally gets this huge fight against Joseph Parker. Keep in mind, ended up failing the drug test for cocaine, but faces Joseph Parker for the WBO interim heavyweight title. Is losing, in my opinion, was down on these scorecards going into the 11th round. Yes, in the 10th and the 11th, Fabio Wardley started to have a lot more success, landing absolutely huge punches, almost having him out in round 10, and in round 11 landed a barrage of punches. The ref didn't know what to do. The ref was scrambling around. Too much hype going around the stadium, and he stops the fight. Many would argue that it was a very early stoppage, but while it was actually happening, for the ref, for the crowd, with all the goddamn, people screaming, with the way that Joseph Parker's body was looking, he was freaking out and didn't know what decision to make. He stops the fight. It looks like Fabio Wardley's bombing on him. Controversy erupts, but we end up finding out Joseph Parker fails a drug test for cocaine, was doing cocaine going into that fight against Fabio Wardley. Now, since then, Fabio Wardley had a mandated fight. He's the WBO interim champion to face Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk decides he doesn't want to face him, vacates the WBO bout, and they elevate him to full WBO champion. Now, the question was going to be, who's next? Well, guess who's next? Guess who's stepping in and facing Fabio Wardley for his WBO heavyweight world title? An opportunity for Daniel Dubois. With a record of 22 wins, 21 of those wins coming by way of knockout. Former IBF full heavyweight champion of the world. Former WBA regular heavyweight champion of the world. A man with only 3 losses. And I want to talk about those losses. Go back all the way to 2020, where he loses his first career fight against Joe Joyce. A fight where he took a knee, decided to not get back up because of the damage that he was taking to that left eye. You had Joe Joyce, who was continuing to land a beautiful jab, beautiful right hand. You had Daniel Dubois, who didn't have his hands up, wasn't protecting that left eye, kept on getting hit. Eventually, it seems like it's just too much pain for him, too much damage. He takes the knee, and they wave it off. He quit. Now, at the end of the day, pain is pain. You can only take a certain amount of pain. His eyeball was shutting, so at the end of the day, they didn't want to let that fight continue happening. It could have ended up a lot worse for Joe Joyce. So at the end of the day, maybe it was the better decision, but he did take the knee and decide not to get up. Now, following that loss, he ends up getting a couple wins, ends up becoming the WBA regular heavyweight champion of the world, and gets his fight against Alexander Usyk. Controversial fight, at least we could say, in that 5th round, where you had Daniel Dubois land a beautiful body shot right on the bout line. Alexander Usyk argues it was a low blow. The ref thinks it's a low blow. It was right on the bout line, though. Very, very controversial shot. but ends up losing that fight and losing his WBA regular heavyweight titles, all right? Since then, he goes on a 3-fight win streak, right? Knocking out Gerald Big Baby Miller in the last round, going in there and beating Filip Hrgovic, gets elevated to full IBF heavyweight champion of the world because Alexander Usyk decides he wants to take a different route. Doesn't fight him, gets elevated. He ends up defending his bout against Anthony Joshua in front of what? 90,000 people. Knocking Anthony Joshua out, but not before being wobbled. Ends up getting Anthony Joshua, putting him to sleep, KO win, and is on the top of the world before facing his last fight, his last opponent. Again, Alexander Usyk knocking him out this time, but also taking the IBF heavyweight title strap off of Daniel Dubois once again. And here we are now. Daniel Dubois looking to become a full WBO heavyweight champion once again. Fabio Wardley looking to continue the miracle, this goddamn beautiful story that he has created that a lot of people are going to end up looking at someday and saying, well, wow, if he could do it, I could do it. This is absolutely breaking news, my people. May 9th, Fabio Wardley, the WBO heavyweight champion of the world, will be taking on Daniel Dubois in an all-out, all-British UK fight, May 9th, 2026. My goodness. What an absolutely fantastic announcement to hear to start our day on the MMA Boxing Addict channel. It is Tuesday morning. I hope everybody has an absolutely fantastic morning. And I'm